Admiral Park Yuna stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance watching the stars through the massive view screen. She had commanded Earth's first real warship for 2 years now, but tonight felt different. The communication officer turned toward her with worry in his eyes. "Admiral, we're getting distress signals from the Kepler colonies," he said. "Multiple systems all saying the same thing." Park walked over to his station. The messages were broken and filled with static, but the words were clear enough. Massive alien ships, entire colonies going silent, people being taken away. "How many colonies have gone dark?" she asked. 17 in the last month, ma'am. The last message came from New Seoul 3 days ago." Park felt ice in her stomach. New Seoul was home to 2 million people. Her own sister lived there with her family. The bridge doors opened and Captain Lee Dong-hyun walked in. He was a tough man who had fought in the war on Mars 10 years ago. His ship, Seoul's Pride, was built for sneaking around without being seen. "Admiral, I heard about the colonies," Lee said. "My ship is ready to go take a look." Park nodded. "Take your best people. We need to know what we're dealing with." 3 days later, Lee's ship reached the edge of the Kepler system. What he saw there changed everything. Huge alien ships floated near the planets like metal cities in space. They were beautiful in a cold way, all smooth lines and crystal towers. But around them were smaller ships carrying cargo containers. "What do you think is in those containers?" asked his second officer, Kim Jae-won. Lee watched through the ship's cameras as one container opened. Inside were hundreds of people, all standing perfectly still like robots. Their eyes were empty, and they moved in perfect time with each other. "Get us closer," Lee ordered. "I need to see more." They followed one of the cargo ships to a massive station orbiting the planet. The station was bigger than any city on Earth. Through the windows they could see thousands of people working on machines and computers. But something was wrong with them. They all moved the same way. They never talked or looked around. They just worked. "Captain," whispered the communications officer, "I'm picking up some kind of signal going into their heads. It's like they're being controlled." Lee had seen enough. "Get us out of here. We need to tell Earth what's happening." While Lee was discovering the horrible truth, Dr. Kim Yoonji was working in her lab on Earth. She studied alien life forms and how their brains worked. For months, she had been looking at brain scans from the few people who escaped from the colonies before they went dark. What she found was amazing and terrible. The human brain was completely different from every alien brain they had studied. Humans could think in ways that made no sense to aliens. They could make crazy jumps in logic that somehow worked. They could be creative in ways that alien computers could never predict. "That's why they want us," she said to her assistant. "They can't think the way we do, so they're stealing our minds." The assistant looked confused. "But why don't they just kill us?" "Because dead humans can't think. They need us alive and working. But they want to control how we think. They're turning us into living computers." Back on the Defiance, Admiral Park was reading Lee's report. The pictures and videos made her sick. Millions of humans turned into slaves, their minds controlled by alien machines. And more ships were coming every day. She called a meeting with Earth's leaders. President Choi Min-ho sat at the head of the table, his face grave. General Song Hyuk was there too, along with the heads of every major country on Earth. "How many people have they taken?" the president asked. "At least 50 million, Park answered. "And they're not stopping. Our scouts report alien fleets moving toward the inner colonies." General Song leaned forward. "What do we know about their military strength?" "They have thousands of ships," Park said. "Each one is bigger and more advanced than anything we've built. But there's something else. Dr. Kim has made a discovery." Dr. Kim stood up and activated a hologram showing brain scans. "The aliens think in very organized ways. Everything follows patterns and rules, but humans don't think like that. We can be random and creative. That confuses them. So we can beat them?" asked the president. "Maybe," Dr. Kim said, "but not in a straight fight. We need to be smart about this." Admiral Park spoke up. "I'm requesting permission to build a real battle fleet, not just exploration ships, but warships designed to fight and win." The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, President Choi spoke. How long would it take? 6 months for the first ships, a year for a real fleet. Do it, the president said. Whatever it costs, whatever it takes. We're not going to let them turn humanity into slaves. Over the next few weeks, every shipyard on Earth and Mars began, working day and night. The designs were different from anything humans had built before. Instead of making ships that looked pretty, they focused on ships that could adapt and change during battle. General Song started training new kinds of soldiers. Instead of teaching them to follow orders perfectly, he taught them to think for themselves and make quick decisions. He studied old Earth battles where smaller armies beat bigger ones by being unpredictable. Captain Lee took Seoul's pride on more secret missions, mapping alien positions and learning how they fought. Each mission brought back more terrible news. The aliens were building huge factories in space using human workers to create more ships and weapons. But Lee also noticed something important. The alien ships always moved in perfect formations. They never changed their plans once they started attacking. They were like a computer program that couldn't adapt. They think they've already won, he told Admiral Park. They see us as primitive, animals who can't threaten them. Good, Park said. Let them keep thinking that. Dr. Kim worked with the rescued colonists, learning how to remove the control devices from their heads. It was dangerous work. Some people died during the process, but those who survived were angry and wanted revenge. They tried to steal my mind, said one former slave, a woman named Han So-young. They made me build weapons that would be used against my own people. I want to make them pay. As the months passed, Earth's fleet grew. The first warships were crude and ugly compared to the beautiful alien vessels, but they had something the aliens didn't expect: the ability to change and adapt. Finally, the day came to send a message to the aliens. Admiral Park stood before cameras that would broadcast her words across the galaxy. Behind her, Earth's new fleet floated in space, ready for war. To the aliens who call themselves our masters, she said, her voice strong and clear. You have made a mistake. You thought you could take our freedom and our minds. You thought we would accept slavery without a fight. She paused, looking directly into the camera. You were wrong. We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not serve. We rise. The message was sent to every alien ship in known space. Within hours, the response came back. The aliens were coming to Earth in force, ready to end the human rebellion before it could begin. But Admiral Park was ready for them. Humanity's real war was about to start. 6 months after Admiral Park's declaration of war, Earth's first battle fleet was ready. 200 ships floated in formation near Mars, but they looked nothing like the elegant alien vessels. Human warships were built like weapons instead of art pieces. They had thick armor, multiple weapon systems, and the ability to change their shape during battle. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Defiance Mark II. It was twice the size of her old ship and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But she knew that weapons alone would not win this war. Admiral, Wraith Squadron is ready for final inspection, reported her communications officer. Park nodded and walked to the fighter bay. Commander Kwon Jisoo was waiting for her with 20 of the best pilots in the fleet. Jisoo was small and quiet, but she could fly a fighter through an asteroid field with her eyes closed. Show me what you've learned, Park said. Jisoo smiled and climbed into her fighter. Within minutes, her squadron was performing maneuvers that would have been impossible for alien pilots. They flew in patterns that seemed random, but worked together perfectly. One moment they were spread across the sky, the next they were diving at their target from 6 different directions. How do you coordinate without radio signals? Park asked when Jisoo landed. We don't plan it, Admiral. We just react to what the others do. It's like a dance where everyone makes up their own steps. Park was impressed. This was exactly what they needed to confuse the alien computers. The fleet's first target was the Procyon system, where 50,000 humans worked as slaves in orbital shipyards. Intelligence reports said the alien commander there, Overlord Vextalion, had 3 times as many ships as the human fleet. Dr. Kim Yoonji was aboard the research ship Innovation, which would follow the fleet into battle. She had spent months developing ways to free the controlled humans without killing them. Her team included former slaves who had escaped the aliens. The control devices send constant signals into the brain, she explained to her assistants. If we cut the signal too fast, the brain goes into shock. We need to reduce it slowly, like turning down the volume on a radio. One of her team members, a man named An Ki-hoon, had been a slave for 2 years before escaping. His hands still shook sometimes from the damage the control device had done to his nervous system. "Doctor, what if some of them don't want to be freed?" he asked. "The device makes you feel safe and calm. Some people might prefer that to the chaos of being free." Dr. Kim had thought about this problem many times. "Then we'll give them time to decide, but everyone deserves the chance to choose." Captain Lee Dong-yun was leading the advanced scouts in Seoul's Pride. His job was to map the enemy positions and find the best way to attack. What he discovered surprised him. The alien fleet was arranged in a perfect geometric pattern around the system star. Every ship was exactly where the mathematical model said it should be. There were no surprises, no backup plans, just cold efficiency. "They're treating this like a math problem," he told Admiral Park over the secure channel. "Their computers have calculated the perfect defense and they're sticking to it no matter what." "Good," Park replied. "Then let's give them a problem their computers can't solve." The Battle of Procyon began when the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace in completely random positions. Some ships appeared behind the alien formation, others came from above and below. A few materialized right in the middle of the enemy fleet. The alien commander tried to reorganize his ships into a proper battle formation, but the humans wouldn't stay still long enough for his computers to target them. Human ships twisted and turned through space like angry wasps, each captain making their own decisions about where to attack. Commander Jisoo led her fighters straight at the largest alien ship. The enemy's defensive guns tried to track her squadron, but their targeting computers couldn't predict the random flight patterns. The fighters slipped through the defenses and launched their missiles at the ship's engines. Meanwhile, Captain Hong Si-woo commanded a group of heavy cruisers that were attacking the shipyards directly. His ships ignored the alien warships and focused on freeing the human slaves. It was a risky move that confused the enemy even more. "Why are they attacking the shipyards instead of our battle fleet?" Overlord Vexus Talion asked his tactical computer. "Unknown. This action serves no strategic purpose," the computer replied. But the alien commander didn't understand human nature. The sight of their own people being freed gave the human fleet extra strength to fight. Every slave ship that broke free was another victory worth celebrating. The battle raged for 6 hours. The aliens had better weapons and stronger shields, but they couldn't adapt to the chaotic human tactics. Their ships kept trying to form perfect battle lines while the humans swarmed around them like pirates. Finally, Overlord Vextalion's flagship was surrounded by human ships attacking from all sides. His tactical computer couldn't process so many targets moving in unpredictable patterns. The ship's defensive systems overloaded and shut down. "Surrender," Admiral Park's voice came over the radio. "Your people don't have to die for this mistake." The alien commander looked at his tactical display. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. The human ships were still moving in those impossible patterns, ready to continue fighting. For the first time in his military career, the mathematics didn't guarantee victory. "I surrender," he said quietly. As the alien ships powered down their weapons, the real work began. Dr. Kim's medical teams moved through the liberated shipyards, carefully removing the control devices from thousands of human slaves. It was slow, dangerous work, but every person they freed was another victory against the alien empire. Han So-young, the former slave who had volunteered for Park's fleet, worked alongside the medical teams. She talked to the newly freed humans, helping them remember what it felt like to think for themselves. "The fog in your head will clear," she told a young man who had been controlled for 3 years. "It takes time, but you'll remember who you are." Some of the freed humans wanted to join the fleet immediately. Others needed time to recover from their ordeal. All of them had stories about the horrors they had seen and the things they had been forced to build. "They made us construct weapons designed to kill humans," one engineer told Admiral Park. "Ships that could crack planets open and bombs that could poison entire solar systems. They're not just enslaving us. They're planning to wipe us out completely. This news made Park more determined than ever. The aliens weren't just trying to control humanity. They wanted to destroy everything that made humans unique. News of the victory at Procyon spread quickly through both human and alien space. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. In the alien empire, other species began to wonder if the mighty hegemony could actually be defeated. But Admiral Park knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would adapt their tactics and send larger fleets. The real test of humanity's strength was still to come. Standing on her bridge as the fleet prepared to leave Procyon, Park looked at the freed shipyards where humans were already back to work, but this time building ships for their own fleet instead of their oppressors. "Where to next, Admiral?" asked her tactical officer. Park smiled grimly. "Wherever there are humans who need to be freed. We're not stopping until every human in the galaxy can think their own thoughts and make their own choices." The Terran Liberation Fleet moved deeper into alien space, carrying hope to the enslaved and fear to their masters. 3 months after the victory at Procyon, news of humanity's rebellion spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On dozens of worlds, alien species that had served the hegemony for centuries began asking dangerous questions. Why did they follow orders without thinking? Why did they accept that some races were born to rule while others were born to serve? Admiral Park stood in the war room aboard her flagship, studying reports from across human space. The Liberation Fleet had grown to 500 ships as Earth's factories worked around the clock. But the news wasn't all good. "The architects are responding," reported Captain Lee Dong-hyun, who had just returned from a deep reconnaissance mission. "They're bringing their personal fleet out of the core systems. Something called the synthesis mind is commanding it." Dr. Kim Yoonji looked up from her research notes. "I've heard that name in the alien databases we captured. The synthesis mind isn't a single being. It's thousands of architect consciousnesses merged into one giant brain. They call it the Eternal Calculator." "How do we fight something like that?" asked Commander Kwon Jisoo. "The same way we fight everything else," Park replied. "We do things it doesn't expect." Captain Bae Wushik had been leading exploration missions to worlds the hegemony had conquered long ago. What he found there made even hardened soldiers sick to their stomachs. Entire species had been turned into biological robots. They still looked like their original forms, but their eyes were empty and they moved with mechanical precision. "Admiral, you need to see this," Bae said, broadcasting from the surface of a dead world. The camera showed millions of creatures that looked like walking plants, all working to build structures that served no purpose anyone could understand. "They've been doing this for thousands of years," Bae continued. "This species had art, music, literature. Now they just build whatever the hegemony tells them to build. They don't even remember their own names." The recording ended with Bae's team finding a museum that the controlled beings had built without understanding what it was for. Inside were statues and paintings from their free days, preserved perfectly but meaningless to the beings who maintained them. Park felt anger burning in her chest. The aliens weren't just enslaving people, they were erasing entire cultures from the universe. Every species they conquered lost everything that made them unique. But there was hope too. On 17 different worlds, alien resistance groups had started fighting back. They used human tactics they learned from intercepted communications, hitting hegemony forces with surprise attacks, and then disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. The most successful rebellion was on Altair 4, where a species called the Singers had refused to let the hegemony control their children. The Singers could communicate across vast distances using harmonic frequencies, making them impossible for the aliens to coordinate against. "They want to join our fleet," reported the communications officer. "They're offering 50 ships and crews who know this sector better than anyone." Park considered the offer. Working with aliens felt strange after fighting them for so long, but these beings were choosing freedom over slavery. That made them allies. "Tell them yes," she decided. "Anyone who wants to fight for freedom is welcome in this fleet." Lieutenant Colonel Im Na-young was preparing for humanity's first major ground assault. The target was Kepler 7, a fortress world where the hegemony trained their occupation forces. Taking it would cripple their ability to control conquered systems. The enemy has been studying our space tactics, she told her officers. But they still don't understand how we fight on the ground. They expect us to march in straight lines and follow military manuals. Her Marines had been training in Earth's most hostile environments. They learned urban warfare in the ruins of old cities, jungle fighting in the Amazon, and desert combat in the Sahara. Each environment taught them to adapt and survive using whatever resources they could find. Remember, Im said to her troops, aliens think war's about mathematics. They calculate the right number of soldiers, the right amount of firepower, the right strategic positions. But war isn't math. It's about people willing to fight for something they believe in. The assault on Kepler-7 began with orbital bombardment that followed no pattern the aliens could predict. Human ships struck targets that seemed unimportant while ignoring obvious military installations. The alien commanders couldn't understand why humans were attacking power plants and communication towers instead of weapon factories. When Im's Marines landed, they split into small groups that moved through the fortress cities like ghosts. They used sewers, maintenance tunnels, and even garbage chutes to get behind enemy lines. The aliens had prepared for a traditional assault with tanks and aircraft, not for soldiers who could appear anywhere at any time. "Contact front," reported Sergeant Park Min-jae over the radio. His squad had found a group of human prisoners being used as forced labor in a weapons factory. "Are they controlled?" Im asked. "Negative, Colonel. These ones are just locked up. They want to fight." Within hours, the freed prisoners were helping the Marines navigate the fortress. They knew every hidden passage and weak point in the alien defenses. What should have been a month-long siege turned into a 3-day victory. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Kim made her most important discovery yet. In the captured hegemony databases, she found the original communications protocols used by the Architect fleet. "They change their codes constantly," she explained to Admiral Park. "But the base mathematical structure never changes. If we can break into their network, we can listen to everything they're planning." "How long do you need?" Park asked. "Give me 2 weeks and access to their most advanced computer systems." Park looked at the tactical display showing hegemony reinforcements, moving toward human space. 2 weeks might be too long, but the intelligence advantage would be worth the risk. "You have your 2 weeks. Make them count." While Dr. Kim worked on breaking the alien codes, the human fleet prepared for its boldest mission yet. Intelligence reports showed that Vega Prime, the hegemony's fortress at the edge of their core territory, held over 1 million human slaves. It was also the staging area for their reserve fleet. 2,000 ships that could crush humanity if they reached Earth. Admiral Park called a meeting with all her senior officers. The holographic display showed Vega Prime's massive defenses and the fleet that protected it. "This is our chance to cripple their war machine before they can organize a proper counterattack," she said. "But it won't be easy. They'll be expecting us this time." Captain Hong Si-woo, who now commanded the experimental ship Indomitable, raised his hand. "Admiral, my ship is equipped with captured alien technology. We might be able to get close enough to disable their communication network." "Commander, crew," Jisoo nodded. "If they can't coordinate their defense, my fighters can punch holes in their formation. And once we control the orbital space, my Marines can liberate the prison complexes," added Colonel Imbert Park, looked around the room at the faces of humanity's best and bravest. 6 months ago, they had been explorers and peacekeepers. Now they were warriors fighting for the freedom of every thinking being in the galaxy. "The aliens think they have us figured out," she said. "They think we're just another primitive species that got lucky once or twice. Let's show them what happens when humans stop playing defense and go on the attack." The fleet began moving toward Vega Prime, carrying the hopes of billions of enslaved beings. Behind them, Earth's factories continued building more ships while Dr. Kim worked frantically to crack the alien communication codes. The tide of war was turning, but the biggest battles still lay ahead. The Battle of Vega Prime began at dawn on a Tuesday. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as 800 human ships dropped out of hyperspace to face the largest enemy fleet ever assembled. 2,000 hegemony vessels, waited in perfect formation around the massive star, their crystalline hulls gleaming like deadly jewels. "All ships, this is Admiral Park," she broadcast to the fleet. "Today we fight not just for humanity, but for every being who dreams of freedom. Show them what chaos can accomplish." The Eternal Calculator's voice echoed across all frequencies, speaking in the cold mathematical language of the architects. "Human fleet, you face certain destruction. Surrender now and your deaths will be swift." "Counteroffer," Park replied. "Surrender now and we might let you live to see what the galaxy looks like when it's free." Captain Hong Siwoo piloted the experimental ship Indomitable toward the enemy's center formation. His vessel was a hybrid of human engineering and captured alien technology, making it unlike anything else in space. His crew included liberated humans whose neural modifications had been only partially removed, giving them insight into hegemony systems while keeping their human creativity. "Captain, I'm detecting massive power buildup in their command ship," reported his science officer, a former slave named Yang Xungho. "The synthesis mind is trying to do something big." Hong watched his displays as energy readings spiked beyond anything they had seen before. The enemy flagship, a crystalline monster the size of a small moon, began to glow with internal fire. "It's trying to upload itself into the star," Yang realized with horror. "If it succeeds, it will become a living star with the power to destroy entire solar systems." The space battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships used Vega's massive gravity well as a weapon, slingshotting around the star to build up incredible speed before hitting enemy formations. The aliens tried to maintain their perfect battle lines, but the humans kept changing the rules. Commander Quan Jisoo led her fighter squadrons through the star's outer corona, using the plasma storms to hide from enemy sensors. The heat should have killed them, but human ships were built tough and ugly instead of elegant. They could survive conditions that would destroy the beautiful alien vessels. "Wraith leader to all fighters," Jisoo broadcast. "The enemy can't track us in this soup. Use it. Make them afraid of their own star." Her pilots dove through the nuclear fire like dolphins through ocean waves, appearing and disappearing in the plasma storms. Every time the aliens thought they had the fighters targeted, they vanished back into the star's burning embrace. On the ground, Colonel Im Na-young led the assault on Vega Prime's fortress cities. The planet's surface was covered with massive structures where 1,000,000 human slaves had lived without hope for generations. Some had been prisoners so long they had children who had never seen the sky without bars. "Remember," Im told her Marines as they fought through the prison complexes, "some of these people have been slaves for 20 years or more. They might not remember what freedom feels like." Sergeant Park Min-jae's squad found a group of children who had been born in captivity. They spoke in whispers and flinched whenever anyone moved too quickly. The youngest was only 5 years old and had never seen a human who wasn't wearing chains. "It's okay," Min-jae said gently, kneeling down to their level. "We're here to take you home." "Where is home?" asked one little girl. Min-jae felt tears in his eyes. "Anywhere you want it to be." Back in space, the battle reached its critical moment. The synthesis mind's upload process was nearly complete. If it succeeded in merging with Vega's star, it would have enough power to sterilize every planet in human space. Dr. Kim Yoon-ji worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the research ship Innovation. She had finally cracked the hegemony's communication codes and discovered something incredible. "Admiral," she called over the emergency channel, "the synthesis mind isn't just uploading itself to the star, it's trying to download the consciousness of every architect who ever lived. They want to become a god." "How do we stop it?" Park demanded, while her ship shook under enemy fire. "We need to get inside their upload facility and disrupt the process from within, but it's protected by their strongest shields." Captain Hong's voice came over the radio. "I can get through their shields, but it's a one-way trip. My ship won't survive the attempt." Park felt her heart sink. Hong was one of her best captains and a good friend, but she knew what he was thinking. Sometimes the only way to win was to sacrifice everything for victory. "Captain, you don't have to do this," she said. "Yes, I do," Hong replied. "My sister was one of the first people taken by the aliens. I never got to save her, but I can save everyone else. The Indomitable accelerated toward the upload facility, its hull glowing red from enemy fire. Hong's crew knew they were flying to their deaths, but none of them asked to be transferred to another ship. They were volunteers who understood that some things were worth dying for. "Tell Earth that we kept our promise," Hong said as his ship approached the facility's shields. The Indomitable hit the shield barrier at full speed and exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from the other side of the solar system. But the explosion created a gap in the shields just long enough for Commander Jisu's fighters to slip through. Her squadron dove toward the upload facility's core, dodging defensive fire from weapons that could vaporize a battleship. One by one, her fighters were shot down until only she remained. "This is for Captain Hong," she whispered, and fired her last missile into the facility's central processor. The explosion tore through the synthesis mine's upload systems just as the process reached completion. The massive artificial intelligence, caught between its physical form and its stellar destination, screamed across every frequency as it was torn apart by its own ambition. The death of the synthesis mind sent shockwaves through the entire hegemony fleet. Ships that had fought with perfect coordination suddenly became confused and disorganized. Their tactical computers couldn't function without the eternal calculator's guidance. "All ships, press the attack," Admiral Park ordered. "They're blind and confused. Don't let them recover." The human fleet swarmed over the enemy like angry bees, targeting command ships and communication arrays. Without central coordination, the superior alien technology meant nothing. Individual ships were picked off one by one until the survivors finally surrendered. As the battle ended, rescue ships began evacuating the liberated slaves from Vega Prime. Many were so damaged by their captivity that they might never fully recover, but they were free, and that was what mattered. Dr. Kim worked with the medical teams using everything she had learned about removing alien mind control. Each freed person was another victory against the forces of oppression. "How many did we lose?" Admiral Park asked her staff as the casualty reports came in. 47 ships destroyed, including the Indomitable," reported her tactical officer. "But we freed over 1 million slaves and destroyed the enemy's reserve fleet." Park nodded, sadly. Every victory came with a price, and good people had died to make it possible. But their sacrifice had meaning. The galaxy was a little bit freer because of what they had done. Standing at the observation deck, watching the rescue operations continue, Park thought about Captain Hong and Commander Jisu and all the others who had given their lives for freedom. The war wasn't over yet, but today had proven that even the most powerful tyranny could be defeated by people who refused to give up. The Liberation Fleet moved on toward the next battle, carrying hope to the enslaved and fear to their oppressors. 6 months after the destruction of the synthesis mind at Vega Prime, the hegemony's 1,000-year empire was crumbling like a house built on sand. Across dozens of star systems, alien species that had served as slaves for generations were rising up against their masters. The galaxy had remembered what freedom felt like. Fleet Admiral Park Yuna, recently promoted after her victories, stood in the command center of humanity's largest space station orbiting Earth. Reports flooded in from every corner of known space. The Altarians had liberated their home system. The Singers were leading a rebellion in the Outer Rim. Even species that humanity had never met were fighting for their independence. "Admiral, we're getting surrender requests from 17 different hegemony sectors," reported Captain Lee Dong-hyun, who now served as her chief of staff. "But the architects themselves have retreated to their core worlds. They're not talking to anyone." Park nodded grimly. She had expected this. The ancient crystalline beings who had started the hegemony would not give up easily. They would rather destroy everything than admit they were wrong. "How many ships do we have for the final assault?" she asked. 1,200 human vessels, plus another 800 from our allies, Lee replied. "It's the largest free fleet in galactic history." The human ships had evolved far beyond their original designs. They now carried technology from dozens of different species, all united in the common cause of freedom. Altarian shields protected human hulls while Singer communication systems allowed instant coordination across vast distances. Captain Bay Wushik commanded one of the new hybrid vessels, the Unity, His crew included humans, Altarians, former hegemony soldiers who had switched sides, and even a few young architects who believed their people were wrong. "It feels strange fighting alongside beings we used to call enemies," his first officer, an Altarian named Veltar, said as they prepared for the journey to the architect homeworld. "That's what makes us different from the hegemony," Bay replied. "We don't see differences as threats. We see them as strengths." Dr. Kim Yoonji was aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony, which would attempt to negotiate with the architects before the shooting started. She had spent months studying their psychology and culture, trying to understand how a species of explorers and scientists had become galactic tyrants. The architects weren't always evil, she explained to the diplomatic team. Millions of years ago, they were curious beings who wanted to understand everything in the universe, but somewhere along the way they decided that chaos and unpredictability were problems to be solved instead of mysteries to be explored. The lead diplomat, Ambassador Cho Junho, frowned. "Can we convince them to change back?" "Maybe," Dr. Kim said, "but it will mean admitting that everything they've done for the last 1,000 years was wrong. That's a hard thing for any being to accept." The journey to the architect homeworld took 2 weeks. The fleet traveled through space that had been empty for centuries, as the architects had moved all other species away from their core territory. They wanted perfect isolation for their perfect society. When they finally arrived at the crystal, cities orbiting the galactic core, what they found was both beautiful and terrible. The architect homeworld was a masterpiece of mathematical precision. Every building, every street, every park was laid out according to perfect geometric principles. But there was no life in it, no randomness, no joy. "It's like a museum," whispered Lieutenant Kim Jinhwan, who was piloting one of the scout ships. "Everything is perfectly preserved, but nothing is actually alive." The architects emerged from their crystal cities in ships that looked like living art. They were beautiful in the way that ice sculptures were beautiful, cold, perfect, and utterly without warmth. Their fleet arranged itself in formation around their homeworld with mathematical precision. Admiral Park tried to open communications, but the architects refused to answer. Finally, a single voice spoke across all frequencies. It was the voice of the prime calculator, the oldest and most powerful of all architects. "Chaotic beings," the voice said, "you have brought disorder to our perfect galaxy. We will not allow this contamination to spread further." "We're not here to destroy you," Park replied. "We're here to offer you a choice. Join the galactic community as equals, or face the consequences of your crimes." "Equality is chaos," the prime calculator responded. "Order is perfection. We choose perfection." The final battle began not with explosions, but with mathematics. The architect ships moved in patterns so complex and beautiful that human computers couldn't track them all. But the patterns were also completely predictable once you understood the underlying equations. "They're still thinking like computers," observed Commander Kwon Jisu's replacement, a young pilot named Nam Tai-hyung. "Everything they do follows rules." "Then let's break some rules," Admiral Park ordered. The Free Fleet attacked using tactics that made no mathematical sense. Ships broke formation at random moments. Fighters dove into battles they couldn't win. Entire squadrons charged straight at enemy strongpoints with no regard for proper strategy. But somehow it worked. The chaos confused the architect battle computers so completely that their perfect formations began to collapse. Ships that should have been supporting each other were left isolated and vulnerable. Captain Bay's ship Unity led a mixed squadron of human and alien vessels straight at the prime calculator's flagship. The ancient being's voice echoed across space as it tried to understand what was happening. "This is impossible," it said. "Your tactics serve no logical purpose. You sacrifice advantage for no gain. You fight battles you cannot win. That's what makes us free," Bay replied as his ship fired its weapons. "We don't do things because computers tell us to. We do them because we choose to." The battle raged around the crystal cities for 3 days. Slowly, the architect resistance began to crumble. Their ships were better designed and more powerful, but they couldn't adapt to the constantly changing tactics of the Free Fleet. Finally, the prime calculator's flagship was surrounded. Its perfect crystalline hull was cracked and burning. The ancient being inside had run out of mathematical solutions. "I do not understand," it broadcast weakly. "How do you coordinate without central planning? How do you succeed without logical strategy?" Dr. Kim's voice came over the diplomatic channel. "We succeed because we trust each other to make good choices. We don't need a central computer to tell us what to do. Every being in our fleet is free to think and act and create." There was a long silence. Then, slowly, the prime calculator spoke again. Its voice was different now, less cold and mechanical. "Show us," it said. "Show us how to be free." The surrender of the architects marked the end of the hegemony's empire, but it was also the beginning of something new. Species that had been enemies for millennia began working together. Worlds that had been enslaved became centers of learning and creativity. A year later, Admiral Park stood before the new Galactic Assembly on Earth. Representatives from over 100 species had gathered to draft a charter for their new alliance. The document was chaotic and imperfect, full of compromises and contradictions that would have horrified the old architects. "We are not perfect," Park said to the assembled delegates. "We make mistakes. We argue and disagree, and sometimes we fight. But that is what makes us alive. That is what makes us free." In the audience, she could see former enemies sitting next to former slaves. Human children played with young Altarians while elderly architects learned to laugh for the first time in their long lives. The galaxy was noisy and messy and completely unpredictable. It was beautiful. The final scene of humanity's greatest victory was not a battle or a ceremony, but a simple moment in a park on Earth. Children from dozens of different species ran and played together, their laughter echoing across the grass. They didn't know or care about the wars their parents had fought. They only knew that they were free to dream and explore and become whatever they wanted to be. And in that laughter, the galaxy found its greatest treasure: hope for a future where diversity was celebrated instead of feared, where freedom was protected instead of crushed, and where every being could choose their own destiny among the stars.